Hi friends, welcome back to another Bible study. Today we're going to be looking at Genesis 23 through 25. This is the death and burial of Sarah, and then the bride for Isaac, and then the birth of the twins. So let's jump into it. I honestly don't think that this is going to be a particularly long video. I don't have a ton of notes. We're getting to a point in Genesis now where we are familiar with things. We know who Abraham is. We've met him. We've gone through the covenant, all the stuff with him. And we have been introduced to a lot of like themes or like concepts within Genesis, especially in relation to God. Like you don't get to the halfway point of Genesis and not know what is going on. So the notes will probably be lighter as we finish the rest of the book. This is the halfway mark, so there's 50 chapters. We'll finish chapter 25 today. So we're about halfway through Genesis, which is really exciting. Wasn't sure. Have you been in the closet the whole time? Wait, hang on. Hey, honey. Hi, baby. All right, chapter 23. This is the death and burial of Sarah. Just a couple of things to note here. One thing I love highlighting repetition. Anytime we see repetition, I want to notice it, especially in these narrative books. They're saying something repetitive on purpose, right? The phrase "bury your my dead" or "burying your dead" is repeated several times. Obviously, that's the whole point of this chapter, but it does make it like thematic of sorts. So chapter 23 opens with telling us that Sarah was 127 years old, and this is important. I saw a lot of like kind of vague, conflicting reasons as to why this is here, and I don't know. And I saw, like I said, a lot of conflict. So if maybe one of y'all found it in your studies and you are convinced of something or whatever, but this is the only age for a woman that is mentioned. She was 30 years old and she died. It's just Sarah. We see Abraham lived to be 30 years old and he died. We see like the genealogy in chapter 5. They lived so long and they died. This kind of thing isn't here for women, and it's only Sarah. That is an incredible amount of honor and reverence towards her. Also, very quickly point out that Abraham is a foreigner and a sojourner. My note says Abraham's status as a foreigner meant he had few rights, and property in the ancient Near East was generally not for sale. It was inherited. So he didn't have anywhere to bury her, and he didn't have any rights to anything. Just like a quick, we'll zoom out a little bit. This area here where Abraham is talking to, does it name him? Yeah, to the Hittites. Abraham goes up and is speaking to them, and the way that they're responding to him, it doesn't read as well in like modern times. Like we don't quite understand what's going on in the context here. And if I'm being honest, I still like it. There's a cultural divide, but essentially the Hittites invite Abraham into their community. Like he could become one of them. He doesn't accept, and that is important, but that is what's kind of going on. That's the best way I know how to explain it. I did see someone else say from verse 11, it says, "No, my Lord, hear me. I give you the field. I give you the cave that's in it." That they said like this is ancient Near Eastern hospitality at its finest, but it wasn't necessarily genuine. Like you offer something out of politeness, but the expectation is that you turn it down, so to speak. But those are all of my notes for 23. I think 23 is a pretty cut and dry chapter. Even like the commentaries that I looked through, the section on chapter 23 was generally speaking pretty small from most of them. It's, you know, we have the death of the first mother to the nation, so to speak. And that's important, and it kicks off the next section, which is the bride for Isaac, which we're getting ready to talk about. But there's not a ton going on here. It's just worth noting that she has passed. All right, chapter 24, we open with Abraham being old. So the Abraham. So Abraham and his servant are having this conversation, and Abraham has him swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth. This is not merely just the God of heavens and earth, as if it's just like some creator God, and like that's it. It's the creator God, like the Lord, like the way that this is, the way that it honestly, it makes me think of like during award season when people get mad because someone will get up on stage and be like, I just want to thank God, and they won't go any further. And I'll see people that are like, what's his name? Notice that they didn't say Jesus, that they just said God. Who was their God? What God are they worshiping? And I don't really care to get all wrapped up in that. I think we all know that most people in Hollywood are not worshiping the same God that we are. But it's a similar, like, okay, well, like, which God are we talking about here kind of thing. I just realized how much of my desk over here you can see, and how I need to clean up here. Abraham has the servant swear by the Lord to do what? I circled not take a wife, Canaanites, and then do not take my son back there. And I wrote 2 big no-nos. Don't take a wife from the Canaanites. Don't take Isaac back to where Abraham came from. This sets up guidelines to protect Isaac and keep the family set apart, or keep them holy, consecrated. Y'all know I love highlight and repetition. I'm going to show you guys all of this yellow throughout chapter 24, which keeps going over here. All of it is highlighting the master-servant relationship. That is a key theme of this chapter. This picture of the, I would say, eager servant serving his master. Verse 14, is it just 14? Yeah, verse 14 is the prayer of the servant. And this is the first recorded prayer for guidance in the Bible. I also have a note that says, superficially, this prayer may seem similar to Gideon's fleece from Judges 6. However, Gideon's sign requires a supernatural work of God, while the servant proposes a test of character, looking for a woman with a generous and hospitable spirit. And then I have a verse reference of Proverbs 31, 10 through 31. The last thing that I want to talk about with this chapter is at the end of the chapter, where both Isaac and Rebecca look up and see each other, is like poetic imagery. They both look up and see each other. But the language here, it says that she sees him and gets off of her camel. It could be translated that she fell off of her camel. That like she looks up and sees Isaac and is like, ooh, and falls off. Okay, chapter 25, we have the death of Abraham. And then we'll have the birth of the boys. The death of Abraham is actually not coming in chronological order. Abraham would have still been alive. Editing me here. I don't know what was going on with the rest of that clip, but yes, he still had another like 15 years when the twins were born. So we have the death of Abraham and then the birth of the boys, but the birth of the boys was before he passed away. They would have been teenagers when Abraham died. Just if we're trying to like keep some sort of a semblance of a timeline in our heads, it doesn't make a whole lot of a difference in the overall narrative of the story, but we do have like explicit details on Abraham's age throughout his story. So I boxed in like the top couple of verses 1 through 4, and I wrote, most of the nations that come from these offspring are located in the Arabian Peninsula and are connected with the spice trade. Random fact for you, I guess. Okay. The end of this section, the opening section of 25, before we get into the birth of the boys, it says the last like 18b or maybe c, it says he settled over against all his kinsmen. I circled all of that and I wrote, to be an enemy of Abraham's seed is to place oneself under the curse of 12:1 through 3. I highlighted verse 21. It says, and Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the note says, while both Sarah and Rebekah are barren, Sarah's infertility story spans 10 chapters and 25 years. Rebekah's barrenness is no sooner mentioned than it is reported as resolved. The word used for the children struggled, in the ESV translation at least, it says the children struggled together within her. This is Strong's 7533. To crush, to break, to oppress, to crack into pieces. This isn't just like the babies are kicking kind of thing. This is like WWE, MMA fighting is happening in her womb. Let's talk about how Esau was red. I have a big long note here, so I'm just going to read it all to you. Maybe I'll put it on the screen as well or something, but it's this big note. So this is Strong's 132 admoni. I don't know. It means ruddy or reddish. This is a healthy red color. The same word is also used of David in 1 Samuel 16:12 and 17:42. Contrast of brothers. Esau, though ruddy and robust, lives by the appetites of the flesh, sells his birthright, and fathers a nation often hostile to the covenant promises. And then David, likewise ruddy, submits his vigor to the Lord, securing Israel's throne and prefiguring the Messiah. And this came from the Topical Lexicon. So let me see if I can try to explain this a little better. Basically, Esau is like a healthy pink, healthy red, like how babies will come out and they're like bright pink and just like fleshy. He lives by this vigor, and is always more concerned with satisfying his fleshly desires. And then that contrasted with David, who also falls victim to his own fleshly desires. He also falls into these traps of sin, but he is also known for submitting to God, for repenting, for, being a man after God's own heart. I think we almost all probably know that about David. If you don't know anything else, you probably know Goliath, you might know Bathsheba, and you probably know that he's a man after God's own heart. Like, those are the three main things that we know about David. Maybe that he wrote some of the Psalms. A lot of people know that. All right, this last little section I actually have the most amount of notes on, so I'm going to try to get through this without making it too confusing because it's a very small section to have so many notes on. But it says, once when Jacob was cooking stew, I circled the word cooking, and this is Strong's 2102 Zud. To act presumptuously. This word is usually used for rebellious action, hinting that Jacob's motives may have been questionable from the start. I then circled let me eat, and Esau said to Jacob, let me eat some of that. This may literally be translated as let me stuff my face. There's like a excitement to it, maybe is a good word for it. That's not, I don't want to use vigor again, but like this man of vigor, and he's like wanting to like stuff his face kind of thing. I then circled sell me your birthright now. Jacob said sell me your birthright now. And I wrote treating God's promise like it can be bargained. So Jacob is acting deceptively, and Esau is acting feral. And they're both treating this birthright like it's something that can just be exchanged, that can be bargained for, that like it doesn't matter. You can bargain for it. I circled ate, drank, rose, and went. So from verse 34, then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. And I wrote, note the speed. The loss of his birthright means nothing to him, as it never held value. All right. I'll see you later.